So Congress will have a difficult time voting down the treaty. That's because the genius Republican leadership is refusing to abide by the Constitution and follow Article 2, Section 2 of the founding document, the treaty ratification process. But then again, this president is not following the constitutional process either, and on multiple levels, especially regarding immigration. Joining me now, author, speaker, strategic consultant, and Daily Ledger contributor, T.J. O'Hara. T.J., there's a judge in California, a federal judge in California, who is saying that the illegals being held in the detention centers must be let go because of the deplorable conditions, which includes, those deplorable conditions include flat-screen TVs, Wi-Fi, and 3 square meals, from what I understand.
Well, yes, but the cells are cold, there are not enough trash cans, and they leave the lights on. So apparently the judge has never been to any of the countries that these people are trying to emigrate from. The issue with this ruling is that the administration now has 90 days to show cause why these detention centers should stay open. And the controversy stems from an agreement that President Clinton reached in 1997 that talks about certain types of conditions. The problem is this is about the only teeth left in the immigration process of this administration as far as being able to stem the flow of illegal immigrants coming into the United States, even though it's kind of a catch and release type of program. So what we fundamentally need is real reform, and unfortunately, rather than building a wall on the southern border, I'd like to see us tear down the political wall in D.C. and maybe come up with an intelligent solution.
Well, you kind of wonder how, with how much veracity the Obama government actually argued this case before the federal judge. They probably wanted to lose it, let's face it, right?
Good chance.
And meantime, this Obama government, the Obama military, will oppose any grassroots effort to protect our military using the Second Amendment, won't they?
Well, they're doing this after the murders at the military recruiting center. We had some armed citizens who went to defend the people in those centers. What's interesting is under the Obama administration, if you think about it, the armed forces has effectively become the unarmed forces. You're not allowed to carry weapons on base, not allowed to carry weapons at a recruiting center, and so there's a vulnerability. Now, I understand the risk associated with having civilians trying to defend the people in those centers, but Ash Carter is now suggesting that he's looking at recommendations. Keep in mind, 13 governors have already enacted in reasonably short order permission for base commanders to decide whether or not to arm National Guard both on base and also at the recruiting centers. So how long should this take? There's just no common sense in the way we address this issue.
None at all. And gun-free zones is open season on our armed forces there. But you know what Obama needs to do? He needs to take his pen and execute an executive order banning any kind of ammo, any at all, that has gunpowder in it. That's probably what's next here.
Well, you know, he just did an interview with the BBC. And in that interview, he said the most frustrating and stymied elements of his presidential presence has been the inability to create suitable gun control. He said, we're the only advanced country in the world that doesn't have common sense gun control. And he cites the fact that there have been repeated mass murders. The problem is he doesn't suggest that any of the gun control that he has tried to author would have prevented any of those. There are only 2 groups that have contributed to the mass murders: sociopaths, which gun control wouldn't have addressed, and you have people with ideologically deplorable focuses that believe that killing innocent civilians is a way to justify their cause. Nothing the president is suggesting goes to that issue. If he wants to solve it, he should look to a country like Singapore. Singapore has an interesting gun law. If you use the gun in the commission of the crime, it's automatically the death penalty. Want to get rid of gun problems? Step up to the plate and come up with a significant solution. But this licensing issue, it's a non-starter.
No, it's an attack on the Second Amendment, clearly. Now, speaking of attacks, Dodd-Frank, I think, is up there with Obamacare in terms of the damage that it's doing to this country in one particular industry, of course, the housing industry, which, from what I understand, latest numbers are, is beginning to tank.
Well, when you look at it, it is tanking to a degree, but Dodd-Frank was orchestrated by Chris Dodd and Barney Frank, who are the people who created the problem.
Right.
These are the people who were trying to create the no-interest loans and no-qualification loans and so forth that led to the debacle that created the downfall in 2008. Yet the president puts this up as this great bill that curbed the recklessness that contributed to our economic downfall. It's the people that caused the downfall that created the bill. And when you look at the too big to fail aspect, which is what the president likes to emphasize, it actually didn't get rid of too big to fail with regard to the banks. It codified it. It now states that these banks will be saved. And what it did is it actually put smaller banks in a difficult situation where the economic barriers and the regulatory barriers preclude smaller banks from taking some of the burden away from the larger banks. So when you look at it, you talk about too big to fail. This is a 2,000-page regulation that's simply too big to succeed.
Boy, that's the truth. You talk to anybody in the mortgage industry or maybe an appraiser, they will tell you it is a nightmare. TJ, thanks.
You're welcome.